It's not separate. These ideas of overly masculinist, violent, heroic, palingenetic sort of ideas are not at all inherently and only intrinsically fascist and nothing else.
That's definitely one thing that's missing from this. I mean, we'll never mind. We'll figure it out. Might is right. Also a characteristic of fascism. Yeah, but it's also a characteristic of liberalism. Like they mask it with fake ideological reasoning, but that's always been the modus operandi of American liberalism in its hemisphere, going all the way back to the Monroe Doctrine, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway, is what might is right is a characteristic of fascism. It is what George Orwell called bully worship, the principle that, as Thucydides famously put it, the strong do what they can and the weak suffer what they must. This view came across in Trump's notorious Oval Office meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, in which Trump showed open contempt for what he regarded as Ukraine's weakness. It came across explicitly and chillingly when Stephen Miller, the president's most powerful aide, told CNN's Jake Tapper, "We live in a world, the real world, that is governed by strength, that is governed by force, and is governed by power. These are the iron laws of the world that have existed since the beginning of time." Those words, though alien to the traditions of American and Christian morality, could have come from the lips of any fascist dictator, or Andrew Jackson, you know, or Richard Nixon.
I will grant that Stephen Miller is probably a fascist. Probably was like, if he could, he would be in a fascist formation. But since he can't, he just isn't.
Right.
But I think that Stephen Miller and Donald Trump are not the same kind of person.
No. Stephen Miller is like, you know, he would be more at home as a far-right Israeli than anywhere in the American political structure.
Yeah.
He is as racist as the average Israeli.
Yeah. Stephen Miller would make a good Likudnik.
Right. Politicized law enforcement, which, give me a fucking break. When has law enforcement not been politicized?
Well, yeah, I mean, never. But
never. It's not even desirable that law enforcement not be politicized.
Yeah, I guess this has always been kind of a myth of the liberal state, though.
Right.
It's like kind of stands astride and above all of the various competitive class, race, whatever, all the various formations in society to try to mediate between them. And so nominally, officially, supposedly, law enforcement is not politicized. But of course, in reality, it never has not been. It's just that, again, this whole article thus far is saying all the stuff that every president before has kind of tried to sweep under the rug and try to be hush-hush about, Donald Trump says out loud. That's it.
Yeah.
He's brash and he's honest on accident.
Politicized law enforcement. Liberals follow the law whether they like it or not. Fascists, no, they don't. Liberals at the top of society flaunt the law and circumvent it constantly, you know? Fascists, only when they like it. Nazism featured a dual state where at any moment the protections of ordinary law could cease to apply. Right, and that was actually legal under the enabling acts that were passed by the German parliament. Trump makes no secret of despising due process of law. He has demanded countless times that his opponents be jailed. Lock her up, chants, with his endorsement, were a prominent feature of his 2016 campaign. Well, Hillary Clinton should be in fucking prison.
Yeah.
And he has suggested the Constitution's termination and said, "I don't know," when asked if he is required to uphold it. That's because he's fucking senile.
Yeah.
His single most dangerous second-term innovation is the repurposing of federal law enforcement to persecute his enemies and shield his friends. Yeah, that's an innovation. That's never happened before in American politics. What a fucking joke. This he expects you to take him seriously. This isn't a serious political magazine.
Yeah, this is one of the more serious political magazines. This is not the Babylon Bee, nor is it like a fringe critique from it's not like what the fuck is? I was gonna say the Daily Stormer. That's the wrong one.
Yeah, that would
Whatever.
be.
It's none of those things. It's the fucking. This is the Atlantic.
You know what's funny is like how much fascists hate Trump now, like actual fascists.
Well, yeah, and
Um.
I think if this author like knew actual fascists, that might actually surprise him, or knew of them. I mean,
Okay. No prior president has produced anything like Trump's direct public order for the Justice Department to investigate two former officials, or like his blatantly retaliatory prosecutions of James Comey and Letitia James. At least 470 people, organizations, and institutions have been targeted for retribution since Trump took office, an average of more than one a day, Reuters reported in November. And today, one can add those to the list, beginning with Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell. Had Trump done nothing else, his demolition of independent and political law enforcement would still have moved the government closer than ever to a fascistic model. I mean, Trump just does it without finesse. He just does the thing that all administrations do, but blatantly. Like, administrations generally farm out political persecution quietly to people below them. Like the way when, yeah, I guess John Kiriakou was prosecuted by the FBI with the assistance of the CIA for exposing the CIA's torture program.
yeah.
That was done at the behest of Obama and pushed out to the FBI below him rather than called for publicly. Obama wanted to take him down because he thought that he embarrassed the United States. You know?
Do you remember throughout the Biden administration, the average right wing critique of Biden's lawfare, the
Right.
politicization of the law, and
Right.
whatever. It
I mean, and
this again is
it's
almost like
always been
word for
done.
word, and it's all yeah, it's always been done.
It's always been done. It's just not as blatant. Like we've always said, Trump is the emperor without clothes, and that's what people hate about him. Is that he exposes the way that the system works, and they hate him. They'll never forgive him for it. He doesn't do it on purpose. He does it because he's a base grifter. You
Yeah.
know, I don't mean based. He he appeals to the base nature of humanity, and he's a grifter, and he is. People see their own base nature in him. Anyway, so dehumanization. Give me a fucking break. Really, this is going to be. Let's talk about the
The
Japanese internment
Tuskegee
camps.
experiment,
The Tuskegee experiment, the fucking, the war on terror, the portrayal of Muslims during the war on terror.
the fucking Trail of Tears, there's not a moment in American history, even the proudest moments of American history.
Right.
There is not a moment where there is not some degree of deliberate, intentional, and overt dehumanization.
Look at the dehumanization of Southerners by liberals anytime there's a disaster in the South. Because,
Yeah,
because Texas voted 48% for Obama or Biden or whatever instead of 52%. Uh, that means that Texans deserve it when the power goes out and people freeze to death in their homes. Largely poor and people of color, by the way, that are suffering from that. But anyway, so like fascism draws its legitimacy from its claims of defending the people from enemies who are animals, criminals, and brutes. All countries do this during war in all systems. Trump characterizes, for instance, political opponents as vermin and immigrants as garbage who are poisoning the blood of our country, language straight out of the Third Reich. Yeah, it's also straight out of just any American engagement with people of color throughout its entire history. Vice President Vance, as a senator, endorsed a book called Unhumans, a title that refers to the left. And who can forget his false claim that Haitians abduct and eat pet cats and dogs? I mean, don't get me wrong, dehumanization is bad, and it's fucking shitty, and it sucks. And the right typically does it more than the left of the political spectrum in the United States' official politics. So, like when I say the right, I mean Republicans, and when I say the left, I mean Democrats. They're much better at decorum than the Republicans are.
yeah, and I really think that at its core, that's the dichotomy in this article: decorum
Right.
versus rashness.
Right. Police state tactics. I mean, sure. Yeah. The police states use police state tactics. But let me tell you one thing. The United States has been a police state for a really long time, and it doesn't have anything to do with Trump coming into power.
Yeah, even since way before 9/11.
Right. Trump has turned ICE into a sprawling paramilitary that roves the country at will, searches and detains non-citizens and citizens without warrants, uses force ostentatiously, operates behind masks, receives skimpy training, lies about its activities, and has been told that it enjoys absolute immunity. Uh, Other than like the part that they publicly have been told that they enjoy absolute immunity, this could be talking about the FBI, the DEA, any local police force,
I was going to
you
say, this
know,
sounds like a description of every single police force I've ever encountered in every kind of situation.
or ICE under Obama, or ICE under Biden, or ICE under George Bush. He more than doubled the agency's size in 2025. Guess who else fucking doubled the agency's size? Obama. And its budget is now larger than all the other federal law enforcement agencies combined, and larger than the entire military budget of all but 15 countries. I mean, don't get me wrong. The way that Trump has increased ICE's budget is absolutely insane. And it's because it's the agency that he can trust. He doesn't trust any of the other ones. They've tried to
Yeah,
prosecute him. They've raided his home, you know?
yeah. Again, like the head shaking here and the impulse to say nah every single at the end of every sentence is not an endorsement.
Right.
I do not think this is good. I just also don't think it is fascist with a capital F. Like
Right.
it's not a distinct thing. That's why I hate it so much, because it is not a distinct thing.
Let's see. This is going to affect every community in every city, said the Cato Institute scholar David Beer recently. Yeah, I mean, that's true. And if the Obama and the Biden administrations hadn't carried on building upon the precedent set by Bush and built up this gigantic deportation infrastructure for Donald Trump to take hold of, then it wouldn't be. Really, almost everyone in our country is going to come in contact with this one way or another. In Minneapolis and elsewhere, the agency has behaved provocatively, sometimes brutally, and arguably illegally, kind of like the cops in every fucking city, and the FBI all the time. Like when the FBI trains and people to do mass shootings and then arrests them before they do it, or to plant bombs in public places and arrest them before they do it. But sometimes they don't, you know? Sometimes they don't get there fast enough after
Right.
they, or when the FBI funds an Order of the Nine Angles, a neo-Nazi Satanist accelerationist terror group's publishing house for years, and convinces a bunch of young, crazy, disaffected white men to take up arms against Jewish community centers and shopping malls and critical infrastructure in this country. Is that legal? No, absolutely not. But guess what? The FBI does it anyway. Anyway, Trump and his staff have encouraged that behavior. It shielded its perpetrators and sent camera crews to publicize, perhaps in the hope of eliciting violent resistance, that it would justify further crackdowns, a standard fascist stratagem. Yeah, that's true. Provoking violence in order to respond with violence is definitely a fascist stratagem. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem's recent appearance with a sign reading "One of ours, all of yours" seemed to nod towards another fascist standby: collective punishment. Wait a minute. Isn't that what Israel does every day in Gaza?
Well, the difference there is shut up.
Okay, so I just looked Jonathan Rauch up. Let's see. Jonathan Rauch identifies as a gay Jewish atheist, considering his ancestral Jewish tradition as a sacred part of his identity, despite not believing in God. He has previously written that Israel should consider reoccupying parts of the West Bank, and has advocated for freedom of speech and pro-Israel and anti-Israel voices on campus. Oh, that's good. He argues for freedom of speech on campus and reoccupying the West Bank.
So reoccupying the West Bank, but not like Lebensraum.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
Lebensraum is bad, but Greater
Israel
Israel
should
is good.
Israel should seize land to expand the state so that more people can move there to
No,
build a
no,
bigger
he
Jewish homeland,
for peace.
but for peace and not for
Lebensraum.
well, yeah, living space, but not capital L, capital S living space.
Right, okay. Undermining elections. Trump's recent musing that there should be no 2026 election may or may not have been jocular, but he and his MAGA supporters believe that they never lose an election, period. They went to great lengths to overturn 2020 elections, as the prosecutor Jack Smith's indictment of Trump and subsequent report detail ad nauseum. Rigging and stealing, outright canceling elections is, of course, job one for fascists. Although Trump's term is limited, we must not expect that he and his MAGA loyalists will voluntarily turn over the White House to a Democrat in 2029, regardless of what the voters say, and the second insurrection will be far better organized than the first. I think that, fascists do rig elections, and so did Tammany Hall throughout the entirety of the 19th and early 20th century, and that was a Democrat organization.
Yeah,
So did John F. Kennedy. Um, so have dozens, probably hundreds of regular ass American politicians throughout history. It is not unique to fascism to undermine elections and rig them. What's private is public. Classical fascism rejects the fundamental liberal distinction between government and the private sector. Per Mussolini's dictum, no individual or groups outside the state. Among Trump's most audacious, if only intermittently successful, initiatives are his efforts to commandeer private entities, including law firms, universities, and corporations. One of his first acts as president last year was to brazenly defy a newly enacted law by taking ownership of TikTok into his own hands. Bolton understood this mentality when he said, oh God, he keeps quoting Bolton. What a piece of shit.
yeah.
Understood this mentality when he said he can't tell the difference between his own personal interests and the national interest, even if he understands what the national interest is. I mean,
Incidentally, talking about the national interest is actually a fascist dictum. Talking about a
right,
personal interest is just
not
at all.
right, and making the private public is also social democratic or, communist or any other number of collectivist kind of. And that's not what Trump is fucking doing. Trump is taking other people's private and making them his private. It's
Donald Trump has obliterated the very notion of a national interest or a public good.
There's a reason that
Donald Trump is he is like a gangster, and that much I would agree with
that. This is the reason this point is only 3 sentences long, is because it's very weak, and he makes an enormous stretch to make this point, and then he kind of like just he argues against what he starts off saying and then closes it out.
And then he also quotes John Bolton for the second time. And
yeah.
if I was trying to make a case against the fascistic nature of a presidential administration, I would definitely not rely on John Bolton of all political figures.
Okay, attacks on the news media. Shortly after taking office in 2017, Trump denounced the news media as the enemy of the American people. Well, I mean, I don't often agree with him, but I will agree with him there. Yeah. The mainstream news media is the enemy of the American people. Actually, it's the enemy of humanity.
Right.
Because it serves to push the official agenda of the state. And they've actually gotten on board whenever, like with the Iran war, they've hopped on board for that. Or when we were bombing the Houthis, they hopped on board for that. Or when we were provoking Russia in Ukraine, they hopped on board for that. They'll get behind Trump whenever he serves the interests of the permanent security state or the fucking permanent arms economy. But the rest of the time when he's not being decorous enough for them, they tear him down. Okay, let's see. A phrase familiar from dictatorships abroad. His hostility never relented, but in his second term, it has reached new heights. Trump has threatened broadcast licenses, abused his regulatory authority, manipulated ownership deals, filed exorbitant lawsuits, played favorites with journalistic access, searched a reporter's home, and vilified news outlets and journalists. What's funny is, yeah, he did all of this stuff the way that a mafia boss would if he had power.